Welcome everyone to today's webinar. We generally do a couple of webinars a month. Some of them are introductions to ClubExpress. Some of them are deep dives into particular pieces of functionality in ClubExpress, and today is one of those. And sometimes we do version announcements where we bundle up a bunch of new features and make them into a new version. We did one about 2 weeks ago for version 10, and last week I did a webinar about the new page builder, and we will revisit that very briefly today. But today, this is all about managing people. And Samantha is going to do a demo of the new tools or the updated tools. But first, we like to take care of a little bit of housekeeping. All the phones and microphones are muted, so questions should be entered into the chat window. And we will revisit the questions at the end of the demo to see if there's anything that wasn't answered. And this is particularly useful for those people that are watching it during a recording. And speaking of recording, all of our webinars are recorded and they are available in a couple of different places, but one of the easiest places to get to it is to go to clubexpress.com, click on Cool Stuff, then click on the Webinars tab, and then you'll see a list of the upcoming webinars, and you'll see a list of the recently recorded webinars. Right above the Webinars tab, there's a Video Tutorials tab. And the reason I'm showing you this is because we put out 4 new tutorials that have to do with changes in version 10, managing the home page, managing custom pages, using the page builder, and managing people. I'm actually going to be changing the using the page builder video just slightly to incorporate some of the changes that I'm going to show you in just a couple of minutes. So there'll be a new video adding about a minute or two to that. And all of our videos are actually stored on YouTube. So you can watch them if you just go to YouTube and search for ClubExpress. You can see them there, and we'd appreciate it if you would click on the subscribe button. And that way you can optionally click on the bell icon to be notified of new content. And finally, if you're using ClubExpress, and particularly if ClubExpress is working very well for you, we'd appreciate it if you'd go to clubexpress.com/reviews and click on one of these review sites and leave a review so others who are evaluating association management solutions can have the benefit of your experience. So today, Samantha is going to be demonstrating people management using a couple of new tools. And before we do that, I want to just do a little update on the advanced editor. I am logged into one of our demo sites as the administrator, Martin Smith. And I'm going to go to the control panel and go to custom pages. Now, the new page builder that we showed last week allows you to make rows and columns and all sorts of things. But there were some questions about what could you do with your existing pages, and anything that had been done on the home page or had been done as a custom page that you would use the row-based editor, that shows up as a single row. So I'm going to click on this one here. This was the advanced content editor demo that was used in the video tutorial about how to use the advanced content editor. I think we've had that out for about 2 years. So you'll see that when it is converted, in fact, let me just jump back for a second. When it is converted here, it says it's a converted custom page. So I can also go into the editor from the versions manager. And we covered a little bit of this last week. And in 2 weeks from now, we're going to be doing another tutorial on managing custom pages and managing the home page. But you'll see that it becomes one large advanced editor row. And if you click on it, as we said last week, you can edit it by clicking on Insert or Edit the Advanced Editor. And last week, I mentioned that the page rows that are here that were placed before the new page builder, they are here, but you couldn't add and remove rows and things like that. Well, we decided to put that functionality back in. What happens is you need to come up here to this little toolbox. And what this will do is it will load the editor toolbar just for the advanced content editor. So here, if I wanted, I can click over here, and you see how it highlights in blue, it highlights this row. And if I wanted to move this row up or down, I could move it up or down. And so now you have complete control over your existing editor. And this is just functionality that you can use anytime you decide to place a row with the advanced editor in it. One of the other things that it allows you to do, and this is something we could do before, but you couldn't do as of last week, is if I wanted to place the cursor here and place a row here, say a 40-60 row, I can have a 40-60 row. And now, if I decided that I wanted to have 3 more columns within this row, and then say over here, I could just place my cursor here and choose here. So now I've got 7 columns into which I could place text. I could come over here and place widgets and things like that. So this toolbar only appears in the advanced editor. You turn it on and off with this toolbox button here. Of course, you can also click on the wrench here to bring up the other set of tools. So we've restored the complete advanced editor functionality, including the ability to move the rows around. Again, you could add rows to rows. You could say add another row on top here. You can do all sorts of things. It leaves you tremendous flexibility without having to write HTML code. So all I wanted to do is show you that this functionality is now available again, and so you can make incredibly complicated pages without having to write any code. So that's all I needed to show you. So Samantha, would you share your screen and pick it up on your demo?
Thanks everyone for joining us today. As Alan mentioned, we're going to talk about the People Manager. And the People Manager was introduced in our version 10.0 update. It replaces our member manager and our non-member database. So all of your contacts are in one location on one screen. Of course, you can still filter your searches to show one set of people or the other, whether that's members or non-members, but now you're able to view all of your contacts in one place. We've also replaced our quick member lookup with the people lookup. So for those of you who maybe didn't use that feature in the past or didn't know what it was for, we're going to go through that today. You also have some new options for non-members that you didn't have previously. So we're going to highlight those today. And we're also going to take a look at our brand new search panel, which has more than 20 different search and filter options where you can really build a detailed and thorough search when you're going through your member database or your non-member database. And so in today's demonstration, we're going to find the tools that you're used to seeing in the member manager and your non-member database. We're going to look for those and find them in the people manager. So nothing that you were used to seeing is gone. All of that is still there. It's just located in a slightly different place than you're used to. We're going to use the new search panel, review all of the new options that you have for managing non-members, and we're also going to go over that new people lookup tool. So the people lookup tool is essentially a read-only people manager where you can search for members and non-members using the same functionality, but you don't have any of those editing capabilities. So it's great for giving database access to a coordinator, so someone that you want to help out with the back end of your site or managing your organization, but you don't want to give them full access. If you'd like more information on the differences between administrators and coordinators, of course, we have a really great webinar that we hosted a few months ago that talks about all of the different roles that you have as far as site security. So what I'm going to do is open up one of our demo clubs. I'm logged into our demo club as Martin Smith. He's an administrator of the Northwest Balloon Club. And I'm going to pop into the control panel in the People tab, and we'll take a look at our People Manager. And to combat any confusion, this is your member and non-member database that only administrators and coordinators would have access to. This is not your member directory. Regular members do not have access to your backend databases. They can't see all of this information. They can't interact with it in the way that you're going to interact with it, and I'm going to interact with it today. So the first stop that we'll make is just to take a brief look at the People Manager. You'll notice right away that while previously you only had some extra buttons to deal with members, in the People Manager now you have buttons dealing with both members and non-members, because remember, this is all about managing all of the people in your organization, not just one individual group. And as I said before, all of the options that you were used to seeing when you're dealing with members, they haven't been taken away. They're just in a different spot. So let's talk about member management within the People Manager. At the top on the right-hand side, you have 2 member buttons. So the first is Add Member. Clicking Add Member takes you to the membership sign up wizard from an administrative perspective. So you've all configured, or most of you at least have likely configured your membership sign up wizard. You know that there are different wizards that you can go through as an administrator versus a regular member versus someone who's renewing. So this is going to take you through the administrative membership sign up wizard so you can sign up members on their behalf. Maybe someone called you over the phone that wants to join your organization, so you just add them to your database. Or maybe you're an organization who's still accepting paper applications where you go in and you manually enter all of that information. So I won't go through actually signing up a member today. We have that in a lot of our other tutorials. It's the same screens that your members are going to see. Of course, your members can add themselves to your database. That's where you go if, as an administrator, you need to add a member to your database. And all of the other buttons that had displayed in the member manager are now condensed in the member options button. So under member options, we have three options that you would have seen within the member manager. The first is level changes. Level changes is used if you have memberships that include multiple people and you need to change the level of one or more of the members. So this could be changing a tertiary member to a secondary member, or replacing the primary member with another person in the membership. And those level changes, as you can see, can go up or down. All you're doing is selecting the type of level change you want to apply and then choosing a member using our standard member selector. The next option that you have is drop expired. So drop expired lets you drop all members that have expired on or before a date that you choose. It allows you to clear out memberships that have been expired for some time. So you might have members who expired several years ago, and they're likely not going to renew at any time soon. So you can drop those memberships. Their information is still maintained in your database. So you can reactivate the membership down the road should that member choose to renew. But it also cleans up your default view. So one of the things that we'll get to a little bit later in today's demonstration is the fact that when you access the People Manager, by default, your initial search is going to be set to view members who are active and expired. If you have a lot of expired members, it could just clutter up that initial view that you have of the People Manager. The last option that you have for dealing with members on this particular item is assign subgroups. Now, this option is only available, of course, if your organization has subgroups or chapters, districts, and regions. So again, you would use our standard member selector to choose a member that you would like to apply a subgroup choice to. And then you decide which subgroup you actually want that member to be a part of. And again, that's only if your organization has chapters, districts, and regions to which you are actually applying that member. Now, for non-members, again, none of those options that you were used to seeing in the non-member database have been taken away. They've simply been condensed in the exact same way that they've been condensed for members. So you can still use the Add Non-Member button to add a non-member. If any of you have added non-members before, it opens up a contact info screen. The thing to remember, and we've reiterated this on several webinars, is that one of the bigger differences between members and non-members is that members have a login, they have a profile on your website, whereas non-members don't. The only ways that non-members get added into your database are either through an administrator or a coordinator adding a non-member into your database, or a non-member adding themselves into your database by either signing up for your mailing list or registering for an event, making a donation. Anytime a non-member performs an action on your site which requires them to enter in some contact information, they automatically get added to your non-member database and they become interested persons, prospective members, donors, event registrants, things like that. Again, for non-members, those options have not been taken away. They're all included in non-member options. Now, I mentioned that one of the ways that non-members get added to your database is by adding themselves to your mailing list. When you configure your website, you have the option for the public side of your website to display a link that says, add me to your mailing list. It's only available to non-members. Members are usually always included in mailing lists already. Non-members can go through a process where they enter in just some basic contact information, and they also tell you how they heard about your organization. So the first option that you can edit is the list of ways that others could have heard about your organization, the ways that non-members may have come across you, either maybe through a friend or through a Google search. So you can kind of keep track of that. The next option that you have is your import non-members option. So this allows you to import non-member contacts throughout the life of your site, not just when you first sign up with ClubExpress. So for those of you who are already ClubExpress customers, thank you. And thank you for joining us. You know that when you first get your site going, you have a big bulk import of your membership database, and you also have a bulk import of your non-members, but you could constantly be adding non-members to your database. So if you happen to acquire a list of contacts, maybe from a sister organization or from a local business that has a mailing list, you can import those in bulk on your own, as opposed to having to add those contacts one by one using that add non-member feature. And again, this is for non-member imports only. The last option that you have is to navigate to our cleanup tools. So you still have all of those tools available to help you find and remove duplicates, mass delete non-members, show your non-member statistics. So you can see your ratio of non-members to members, how much you're actually paying for those non-members. If you do end up paying for them, the threshold to have to pay for non-members is quite high. You usually don't reach it, but you can kind of keep a tab on that and check that out. So we'll go back into our People Manager, and we'll move down the screen and talk about our new searching options. You now have the ability to build a really thorough search by compounding search filters. So when you navigate to the People Manager, I mentioned this earlier, the default search is for active and expired members. So reading my search, I'm searching for members. I have the option to switch my search to non-members only, or I can search for both. And as far as filters, I have a member status filter selected. And under the statuses, I've chosen active and expired. So let's just run this search and see what comes up. I'm searching and sorting by last name and first name. And all of my results are going to show me all of the members that are either active or expired, sorted by their last name. But another difference, obviously, is now you can search through non-members and members at the same time. So let's take advantage of that. Let's say I want to search through my lists for a specific mailing list category. I want to see every contact that I have, member or non-member, in that category. At the top, I'm going to select both. And that's going to run through all of my members and non-members. Member status is my next search option. So on the left-hand side of your search panel is where you select the main search criteria. And to the right of that is where you're going to select the specific items within the main criteria. Now I'm going to leave member status here, and I'm still going to keep my expired items checked, but maybe I want to see any dropped members that may be part of this mailing list category as well. So I'm going to add dropped members. Now, whenever you're looking at a checkbox list of options, you'll have a check all option at the very top. Clicking that obviously just checks all of the boxes underneath it and is really going to search for any member with any status. But again, I can uncheck that box because I don't actually want to see all of those statuses. I just want to see active, expired, and dropped. And under my next filter, right now it's set to last name, but I'm going to change that to mailing list category. So when I'm looking through all of my search filters, I can see that some of them are grayed out. That could indicate one of two things. The first being that the search filter is already being used. So you can't add the same search filter twice. We're using member status as the first search filter. So we can see we can't even select it. It's grayed out. Another item that's grayed out, metro area. This particular demo site isn't using metro areas. So if your organization isn't using them, you'll see it, but it'll be grayed out and you won't be able to actually choose it. I'm going to select category, and in my filter items, I'm going to select the category that I actually want to see. I just would like to see my donors. Now, if I'd like to add a filter, maybe I'd like to narrow my search down even further by searching for a last name. All I have to do is add filter, and I can keep adding filters as much as I'd like. And if I make a mistake, I can always remove a filter. Now, a couple of the search options are a little bit new, kind of exciting. So at the very bottom, we can search through by committee. We can also search by interest group. If I select is in renewal cycle, we can search for just members who are at some point in their renewal cycle. So we'd only be seeing members then who are either expired or in their renewal cycle with that red renewal icon. And then the last option would be those with a pending payment. Anyone who has a pending payment, any outstanding payment. So all of these green dollar signs, they're all going to appear within your search. And my apologies, I did skip one, recent addition. So if you'd like to view just a quick list of anyone, members or non-members, who have entered into your database in the last 1, 2, or 3 months, you can now run that search right from the People Manager. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove this last filter using that delete icon because I don't need it. All I want to do is see a list of everyone who's either active or expired. I believe I wanted to select dropped as well, and who is a donor. So I'm going to hit search. So I have a result list of 6 people. So in the search right now, you should see a lot of familiar items and a couple of new ones. Let's start all the way on the left. First, we have our member number. Now, for non-members, obviously, you don't see a member number. You see NA, which is your first indication that this is a non-member. So our first new option is that now you can quickly email either a member or a non-member right from the People Manager. Now, not everyone in here has this new email icon, and that's because not everyone has an email address on file. So if you happen to get a member or a non-member in your database that doesn't enter an email address, they wouldn't have that email icon present. Now, clicking the email icon will actually open up an email message. I'll drag this over. It opened on my other monitor. It opens up an email message to the contact that I was looking at and click that icon for. And it opens up a brand new email message using whatever default email choice is on the device that you're using. So if you are on your desktop, it's going to use whatever you use to compose emails that way. If you happen to be accessing the People Manager on your phone, it'll open up whatever happens to be the default email service that you're using on your phone. You, of course, still have the ability to view contact information for any member or non-member just by clicking the city information below that particular member's name. That has not changed. Next up, we have status. So you can now actually see the status, not just of your members, but of your non-members as well. So under membership, for members, the status is actually a link. And if you're not familiar with this, this is a link that allows you to do a number of different things. If you require approval for memberships, clicking the status link under that membership is where you actually would change the membership from prospective to active. You can drop memberships, as you can see. You can freeze those memberships. You can do a number of different things using the member status link.
There was a question in the chat. If you just click on Audrey's active for a moment, the question is, what happens if a member passes away? And the way you would do this, you would click on drop, and then you would select here the reason, and one of them would be deceased. Audrey has not passed away, but this was the way this was done.
And we get that question a lot, actually. There are a number of different reasons, yes, that you can choose when you drop a member. There are a number of different reasons that you can choose when you drop a member. And this just gets added to, the database so that you can kind of keep track of why you've dropped that member and then what to do about their pending transactions if they happen to have any outstanding transactions. Now, for non-members, you may not have really thought about it, but your non-members can have a status just like members. It was just never displayed before. So the statuses that you might see for your non-member contacts are either active, dropped, or removed. Now, all of these are listed as active. An active non-member is one who's in your database and receiving communications from you. A non-member can become dropped when you delete the non-member from your database. So deleting the non-member from your database doesn't just remove them entirely. They're simply dropped from your non-member database. And then finally, once a non-member is dropped, they can then be removed by visiting that non-member's privacy settings and selecting remove me completely. And we'll go through that shortly. That process is very similar to the process of completely removing a member from your database. So remember, you aren't charged much for your non-members. Again, we have that pretty high ratio where up to a certain point, you're not charged for non-member contacts in your database. But if you have a lot of what I call dirty data, maybe you have a lot of non-members that just don't have email addresses and you only do an email newsletter. You don't ever reach out to your non-member database with paper mailings or phone calls. Maybe go through and just call those non-members out so that you don't have a lot of clutter in your non-member database. Now, the next few columns are no different from our previous options, but you can see that if you are running a search with both non-members and members, if the non-member just doesn't have data to fill those cells, they'll be blank. So for example, non-members don't have a level, they don't have an expiration date. So all of that information is just left blank. And the last column is our maintain column. Now, all of the options, again, that you're used to seeing in both databases are still here, just in one section. So again, if you're running a search for both non-members and members, those icons will appear in their proper places. So first up, we have our edit icon. In the case of members, you use this to access that particular member's member profile. View it, make changes. You can edit the contact information, view transaction history. Of course, as always, members have access to their own member profiles and they can make changes on their own, view their own transaction history, view their own registration history. Audrey can log in and do all of this on her own. That has not changed. Members still have access to their own profile. And of course, non-members, as we discussed, non-members do not have a member profile. So when you click that edit icon for a non-member, it opens up a pop-up window where you're just entering in basic contact information for that particular non-member. And again, non-members don't have a login. They don't have access to a member profile. So updating the contact information for a non-member falls on administrators still. That has not changed.
There is a question that we have is, can we see a date for when a non-member was added? And I don't think we have that.
That's correct.
Well, we'll add that to the wish list.
So next icon we have is our mailing list category icon. Our mailing list categories are just an extra way that you can add an additional data point and sorting point to your members, perhaps using categories that our system can't necessarily recognize. So maybe you want to add a mailing list category for people who register for a very specific type of event, or you'd like to add a mailing list category for people with a specific type of job. Our system can't necessarily recognize that a group of people work at a local bakery. So maybe you add a mailing list category that's just for local bakeries, or maybe you add a mailing list category for local press. These are things, again, that aren't readily available as data points within our system, but there are ways that you can still make sure that when you're contacting a certain group of people using your website, you're contacting the right people. We have a really great webinar and tutorial on mailing list categories that is on our YouTube channel. So if you are interested in that, please take a watch for that. The next icon for members is still going to be our member bio icon. Again, the member bio takes you to the directory listing of that particular member. Now, of course, the member can make changes. You can make changes as an administrator, and the member directory is obviously only accessible if you have enabled the member directory on your website. You'll now see one of the new additions, a charge credit icon, not just for members, but also for non-members. So you can issue a standalone charge or credit to either a member or a non-member. And you can also now add note to the account for a member or a non-member. Again, If you aren't familiar with notes, you'll see that in one case, we have a note with a green plus sign, and in another, we have a note with a red circle. So the green plus sign indicates that there are notes present for that particular member. Opening up member notes just opens up a plain text editor where you can enter in plain text notes. Now, these are administrative only notes. The member cannot see these notes. So again, they're just things that administrators or coordinators, if they have access to your people manager, that they're going to see on their end. Next up, of course, we have our renewal icon. Members are, you still have the ability as an administrator to renew or extend memberships for members in your database. As always, the red circle, which we saw earlier, indicates that the membership is actually within the renewal cycle. So the membership is expired and that person actually does need to renew, whereas a black circle means that the membership is not yet expired. You can still extend it. It's not technically renewing at that point. And then, of course, we have our payment icon, which applies to both members and non-members. That has not changed. You still have the ability to process payments for members and non-members. Of course, People Manager is not the only place that you can process payments that I maybe get mailed in, or if someone calls in with credit card information. You can also process payments on the transaction search page. But again, if you spend a lot of time in the People Manager already, you have the ability to process payments that way. And remember that one of our new search options is just to show everyone who happens to have a pending payment. So if I remove the category of donor and I'm just looking at those folks who have a pending payment, try and reset that search. It's going to show me everyone who has a pending payment on my site. I can go ahead and apply payments. I can remove payments or process them in another way. Now, with non-members, you still have all of those more options that you had in your non-member database. So if you'll recall, you clicked on a submenu icon that opened up an expanded drop-down or side menu with more options. And these are options that you would have seen when dealing with members, but we condensed them into a menu with non-members, again, because most of these things would be contained in that particular member's member profile. And again, non-members don't have that. So we break out some of their other options so you can still see them as an administrator. So most of those items are going to be familiar to you because you've used them when you've dealt with your members. But converting to a member and merging records, those are items that are actually unique to non-members and to the non-members in your database. So the first option is to convert to a member. So converting a non-member to a member, why would you want to do that? Well, let's say the member has registered for an event and paid for that event. They have financial history associated with their non-member account. They may have volunteered. They may have a handful of transactions that they've performed on your website. Maybe they've made donations. If that particular non-member then becomes a member, now they have data sitting in essentially two separate accounts on your site. They have data sitting with their account as a non-member, and now they have new data that they're creating as a member. So instead of having that person sign up as a member when they're already technically in your database, you have the ability to convert them to a member using their same contact information, selecting a new member type, clicking OK. That particular member gets contacted. They can sign in and apply their own payment on their own, or you as an administrator can, of course, go in and apply a payment. And all of the data that Maritza had on her non-member account gets moved to a brand new member account. She gets to keep all of that information. The other option that you have is to merge records together. Now, that could be useful in the same scenario that we were just talking about. If Maritza had signed up and did not give maybe an administrator the opportunity to convert her to a member, you can merge those two records together so that all of her data is in one place and you don't lose any of it. And this is the same with non-members as well, because you can merge two non-member records together for the same exact reason. You don't want to have data for one person in two separate places. So if you have a non-member that may have signed up twice, you have the ability to merge their records together so that any financial transactions, any event registrations, they're all associated with one particular record. So the last option that's relatively new is the ability to print out reports in the same way that you were able to print them out for members. You can print them out for non-members as well. So we've got standard invoices that you can print and send, as well as mailing labels with that particular non-member's contact information. So let's take a quick look at the People Lookup tool. Now, the People Lookup is right under your People Manager. It used to be the Quick Member Lookup tool. And it's essentially a read-only version of your People Manager, where a coordinator can look up using the exact same search feature, your members and your non-members, all in the same place. So we can see at the very top that we still have our search panel with the exact same searching functionality as our People Manager. We don't have any of those additional buttons. And when we run our search, you can see in the maintain column, we're left with one icon. We don't have the maintain column options that we did in the People Manager. So we'll get to that in a moment. On the left-hand side, a coordinator who would have access to the People Lookup tool still has access to quick contact info for each member and non-member. So I can still see Audrey's address. I can see her email address. I still have the ability to reach out to members individually. I can still see membership information, pertinent membership information. And on the right-hand side, in the case of members, whoever has access to the People Lookup tool has the ability to reset a member's password. Now, that's not to say change the password. It resets. So if I were to say reset Audrey's password, I, as an administrator or a coordinator, would not be assigning her a new password. I have no control over what the new password might be. I'm simply saying I'd like to send Audrey an email with a new temporary password that she can use to sign in and create a more permanent password. It's essentially the same functionality that our support team uses to issue a new temporary password if someone has forgotten their password. So again, the People Lookup tool is a great tool to give coordinators, or really any kind of coordinator, whether they're working on events, whether they're working on donations, volunteering. It's a great way to give them access to your entire member and non-member database without actually giving them any of that editing functionality that we see in the People Manager. Alan, how are we doing on questions?
Well, most of the questions are things that are not necessarily dealing with what you're talking about. There was a good comment from Roger that talked about the data export has information about when a non-member was added to the database. And that's sitting on the Club tab, data export, right? Data export. And so you have non-member database with categories and things like that. So there's a lot of information there. There was a question here. Can you talk about merging members?
Absolutely. So in the People Manager, so records that you're merging would be a non-member record into you're either merging a non-member record with a member record, or two non-member records together. So within my More Options icon in the line of a non-member, if I select Merge, I first choose whether I want to merge Maritza's record with a member and select that member, or with a non-member and select the non-member. And the reason I want to do that is, again, Maritza might have financial traction. She has an open transaction right now. So maybe she signed up for an event, wasn't thinking, and registered herself as a non-member with with your website. Maybe she used a different email address, and so our system recognized her as a different person and didn't warn her that she was actually a member with your organization. So it's one extra layer of protection against human error. It could even happen if Maritza signed up as a non-member twice on your website. Maybe she signed up with her work email one time, forgot it, and then signed up with a personal email address a second time. So when you're merging the records together, if I wanted to merge her data with another member, I simply use our member selector to choose another member. Once I hit save, she is removed from the non-member database, and all of that information is merged into the member record.
All right. There's a question here about who gets notifications when a member updates their profile. I don't know that anybody gets notifications if somebody were just to change their address or something like that.
Correct. There aren't any notifications that come through about that. That may not be something you want. I imagine for larger organizations that might happen quite often.
Right. There's also a request for people to be able to search the members by phone number. And this was something that was brought up in our last the version demo. It's something that I think we should add, and I know it's been passed along to the developers. Let's see. It says there have been references to a combined database. It says, to me, it appears that there are still two databases. Yes, in fact, there are still two. It's not two databases, there are two underlying tables within the database.
Yes.
The change has not been made to the underlying structure. The change has been made to the tools that you use to manage both members and non-members. But there were some additions, like non-member notes. You never had non-member notes before. And so that was added to the underlying table structure to make the two tables more like one another.
Yes. So yes, there's still two separate sections where data is stored. It's just you're accessing them all in one place if you so choose.
Yeah, a good example of this is if you went into the ad hoc reporting module, you would still be able to pull out from your users, which is a view of both members and non-members versus members versus non-members. So they are stored in separate tables underneath, but this way we tried to combine the tools because people said, well, I want to find out all my people whose last name is Smith. And rather than having to go to the non-member database, search for Smith, and find the members that are searched for Smith and search. So this way you get a list that has everything that you want, drop members, non-members, et cetera, et cetera. And so this made it easier for people to manage all of the people in one place. And this is something that was asked of us quite often. And so that's what these new tools allow you to do. And I said, what is the hierarchy of merging? What info overwrites what? We said there are a lot of duplicate non-members registering for events. And these are things that you can do in the cleanup tools, where if you have a bunch of people, try finding duplicates by street address. I think we may have some in there. And you can see that there are two people at 123 4th Street. And when you click on them, you'll see them. And you can decide whether or not these need to be merged. Like here, for example, it's showing that they're in Anchorage, Alaska, and Anchorage, Arkansas, which just means that someone picked the wrong state abbreviation, and you would want to merge these two together. So you get to decide where they get merged to. You get to decide who is the most recently updated. And we go into quite a bit of detail about this in the Managing People tutorial, where we go through each one of these things and show some examples of them. Someone says it'd be great to receive a notification when someone makes a payment online. I do know I can run a report and find that activity. Again, I don't know if that is available, or if in a large club it would become really oppressive very quickly if someone were getting hundreds of emails a day. But anything that you have that you don't know how to do, or you're not sure if the system knows how to do it, do not hesitate to either email or call our customer success team. Mm-hmm. Would you just scroll down to the bottom of the page, Samantha? So if you click on Contact Us, and this is available not only to you, but to all of your members. If you scroll down to the bottom, it says if you have a ClubExpress transaction or some technical support, don't hesitate to call our customer success team. They're really good. And again, it's not only you, but you can tell your members they can do this, because this is on the bottom of every one of their pages. And they can walk you through it and see if you've got your site configured properly. There was a question about someone trying to renew outside the renewal cycle or during the grace period, and their expiration date isn't the expiration date that they expect. Well, this might be based on the way you've got your system configured. They can resolve this for you. It says, can you merge members when there are two different member numbers? So you're saying if you have people that are two members, somebody registered twice, for example, someone inadvertently registered twice. Well, one is you could simply drop the other member and say, well, it was a duplicate member, and then you can decide what to do with the information. Again, these are listed in the tutorials, and for any specific cases, give our customer support people a call. And Suzanne says the support staff has been very useful for a variety of issues. If you really have two people, but you want to merge them under one family type membership, you can go to level change and move them from a secondary member to another one. Yeah, that's very common. If you have somebody who has a family member and they signed up a second account, you could make that person, you can merge them into another primary. You can merge them as a secondary into another account. Absolutely. And that's under member level changes, I think, at the top. Under member options, level change, you say, okay, this is the person I want to link a solo member to a primary. So this is another person, say your spouse just registered another individual and you wanted to put them into your family membership, you would link a solo to that family membership. I'll say, Roger says, a reminder, any reports showing notes for both member and non-member, also contact logs for member and non-member in a single report. So we will pass that on to the development team. He says, well, I still don't understand how you merge two active members. You would, if you have two members are active accounts, two individual active members. Samantha, why don't you take it from here?
Yes. So if you have two individual active members, you need to decide which is the membership that you actually want to keep. You don't merge the two active members together. You drop one of the duplicates. We actually have a dropped duplicate, member number 20. Member number 20, Jerry Blick, so he was marked as a duplicate member. So when we dropped his membership, let me open up another active membership. So, excuse me. So if we drop a membership, remember we have a lot of reasons that we can give as the reason for dropping the membership. One of them is that this particular member is a duplicate member. You can also drop members that you may have added inadvertently when you were testing your ClubExpress site. And when you've dropped them, you can move their transactions to another member. So you're not losing that data, you're moving it to the new record. So you're not technically merging them, you're dropping a member and moving all of their information to what should be the member's active profile.
I think that's pretty much it. Again, I urge you to watch the Managing People tutorial, the new Managing People tutorial, and it goes into great detail on this. There's also a little section on there about the people lookup, and the people lookup is great for those people, coordinators in particular, that you want to be able to have access to the member and non-member database, but you don't want them to make changes. Although they can issue a password reset, which was very useful. And depending on your organization structure, you could even have people at higher levels in the organization be able to reset the password of people lower level organization. So if you have a national organization, someone at the state level or the district level might call the national organization and say, please reset my password. So now they can do that. Samantha, do you have any closing words here?
Just thanks everyone for joining.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and we will see you in the next webinar.